Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon. Today we're looking at how to play the ELC like a pro. We're following around Duelmaster 333. He wrote an article of what exactly he was thinking in these two replays on Fisherman's Bay. The link's in the comments, go check it out. The ELC is just horribly misplayed by the vast majority of people. The reason why we're watching a purple play the ELC is there was a conversation that stretched from an article that I wrote about Win 8 of, hey, what are the great padding tanks for Win 8 if, padding is your thing. And the ELC was one of them that I listed. And so there were a couple people who tried it out. Oni-chan was one of them. And they wanted to see just how high of a Win 8 they could reach. And so Duelmaster and Oni-chan and a couple of others actually were able to hit like 6,000 Win 8 over, 20, 30, 40, 50 games, which is absolutely ridiculously incredible. So we got a bunch of really nice replays and a little bit of how-to, because the ELC hasn't been played in forever by a lot of good players. And I think it's worthwhile to go over it because the ELC is just one of the misplayed tanks in all of the game. Now, the biggest thing that you should notice right now that he's doing different from other players is that he's still alive. Yeah, that's substantially different from what other people do. He's actually alive, and a lot of people believe that the ELC is just a suicide scout. In fact, when I was trying to see how high of a Win 8 I could get with the ELC, I played 25 games, and I was team killed in 5 of them. People just get really mad if I don't go out to suicide, even though after the game I would have more damage than their tier 8 or tier 9 tank. They would just team kill me out of spite or hatred or whatnot. You can see in G6 the opposing ELC has decided to suicide at this point. That is quote-unquote normal. Unfortunately, quote-unquote normal is really bad. The Wheezy 120 is having some problems with him, probably because the ELC is underneath his gun depression and he can't actually lower his gun enough to hit the ELC. The ELC has a couple of quirks that make it very unique. One, it is a tier 5 that sees up to tier 9 tanks. That makes life difficult because it only has 400 HP. At tier 9, looking at the enemy lineup, Duelmaster can be one-shot by literally half the tanks on the opposing team. The ELC has a partial turret, and it also has that horrible aim time. You can look at the bloom, it's just huge, and he's trying to aim on the low. Horrible aim time, not great damage per minute. It does have pretty good penetration and alpha for what it is, being able to deal an average of 240 damage per shot is really good and relevant on a tank this tiny. The main strengths of the ELC are going to be its mobility and its awesome camouflage. Now, Duelmaster is not running with Sixth Sense. This is a ghetto crew. When you combine the lack of Sixth Sense with the ability to be one-shot by literally half the team, that really complicates the issue. Because of the tremendously awful aim time and the low hit points, it's even able to be one-shot in a tier 5 or tier 6 battle, either by a derp gun or something like a KV-1S. The ELC really can't spend a lot of time squaring off against other tanks. It has to rely on the vision system, and it has to rely on that great camo, because you want to spend, the 10 seconds that it takes to aim in on the enemy, and you want to do that relatively unseen. Duelmaster has been very disciplined whenever he's traveling. His first thought is to peek inside a bush because not being seen is the only defense he has. One phenomenon of light tanks is that the enemy, if they see you, they're just going to suicide into you, in no matter what tank they're in. That Panther saw Duelmaster in the ELC and just ran at him. He just completely went YOLO. Just forgetting like, hey, he doesn't need cover or he doesn't need anything. And everyone's going to do that, so take that into account. So Duelmaster has been very cautious, I would say, in his movements, and he makes sure that he has kind of an escape route from the enemy because he knows that they are going to suicide into him if they get the chance. So we are about 5.5 minutes into the game, which is about 5 minutes longer than the average ELC lives. And you'll notice that Duel Master continues to play the vision games. He still continues to be very cautious, and he's not going up to the enemy. He's not just flying into the enemy. Especially in Tier 9 games, you need to keep your distance a bit, because the Tier 9 tanks, by now, they all have 390 or 400 view range, and the ELC only has a view range of 370, so even though it does have great camo, it can be outspotted, it can be counter-spotted, and without camo, it will be one-shot. In a Tier 5 game or a Tier 6 game, you can be a lot more aggressive in your spotting and how far you go forward, because the tanks there only have about 350 to 370 view range, and they're typically not running optics. People are grinding through tanks and have bad crews, so your tank is basically invisible at that point. Alright, we're skipping to the next game. This game is also on Fisherman's Bay, and if you look at the minimap, you can see that the only thing standing between the enemy and the cap is Duel Master and a couple of artillery. Now, so this is a Tier 7 game, and there's a VK 3001 in front of him. There's also a couple of other enemies down there. Duel Master knows this. There's also a couple of enemies guarding the enemy cap, so the teammates trying to cap will be facing some resistance. So it's all on Duel Master to defend. There's a Hellcat that pops out, and the Hellcat's looking for artillery. So what's coming up next is that Duel Master is going to give an absolute clinic on using the vision system. The first thing to note is there's these bushes in front of him. Right now he cannot see through the bushes, they are opaque. He cannot see through the bushes, they are opaque. What that means is that he will be able to fire at the Hellcat, and the Hellcat will not see him. The Hellcat cannot see through those bushes because he's not close enough to them. The bushes are blocking the view. So now Duel Master needs to move into the bushes, and he needs to spot the Hellcat. When the bushes become translucent, that means he can see through them. That means when he fires, the camouflage rating of those bushes is going to drop to 0, and the Hellcat will be able to see him. So he backs up before he shoots. He spots the Hellcat, and the Hellcat's going to be on the screen for a couple of seconds, depending, and then he's going to back up so he can fire while remaining completely invisible to the tanks in front of him. Since there are multiple enemies in front of him, he cannot trade shots. He's just going to get killed really quickly, and his team is not going to be able to cap because there's only one by the enemy cap, and there are 2 enemy tanks in front of Duel Master. Notice how we can't see through the bushes? That means the Hellcat, when he fires, cannot see Duel Master. Now, he's not moving up to the bushes right away because it takes about 6 seconds for the camo rating to come back up. And so then when the camo rating comes back up after he fires, because when you fire, the camo rating for you and everything around you for 15 meters drops to 0, then he goes to peek in the bushes. After he fires, he backs up because he does not want those bushes camouflage rating to drop back to 0. You know what? I wrote an article on the vision system. I'm going to put the link in the comments too. So everything that you see here of how to abuse the vision system, it's in article form, and that might make things a little bit clearer to be able to see it in action and with the article. So now he comes up there, and he's going to do the exact same thing. He's peeking through the bushes. He backs up into third-person view, and he knows the Hellcat's hiding the points, so he wants to hit the Hellcat first. And he can't see through the bushes, he can't see through the bushes, so he fires, and he's still not spotted. We don't need Sixth Sense here to know that we're not spotted. So Duel Master has done an excellent job so far, but it's still very possible to lose this. His teammate does not look intent on capping the enemy out. Artillery, it may not be able to do anything if Duel Master dies, and you know what? If the JP and the ELC just trade shots, the ELC is still going to die first just because it has that really low hit points and very low damage per minute. Even though he can't be seen, he's being very careful, showing good technique by using the third-person view just to peek the gun over the hill and hide as much of his tank as possible. Right now, he could probably just walk up to the JP and cycle him out, but Artie's going to finish the job for him. Overall, just an excellent game. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.